Hello, US 102 history class for section 4800. Um, so I'm going to do a summary of what we covered for the first week, but I want to start off by just mentioning some compliments to the class for the start. I haven't been able to grade everyone. And for those of you who had some struggling with what the expectations were in the essays, just know that that's normal to have happen on the first week. And so if you received a 0 from me, or just I didn't even grade it and I just mentioned something that needs to be changed, please know that's normal, and that's okay. This is the first week. But I have to say that as a whole, this class has started off stronger in terms of understanding the instructions and putting and applying those instructions into the essays than many of my classes that are just not through the CCAP system. I saw time and time again very thoughtful essays with the citations put in as they are required. And I just want to say a few things on this again to just make sure that everybody, despite that, is just really clear on. Is because for some of you, also you had a lot of citations, but then they weren't always being used right after some information was paraphrased. The habit that I'm trying to get, just to make sure that this is maintained throughout this semester, is to make sure that when you write a chunk of information down, if you have information there that didn't come from your brain, that you received from the reading in OpenStax, Zen, video, an article, that then you're just, the citation in parentheses comes after and mentions where, would tell us where you got that information from. And you have to do that the whole entire time. So some of you, I noticed, put a lot of citations, but sometimes would not do it for that. Now, if it's general information, but I'm talking about, that's different. But what I'm talking about, when you have really specific information that is only linked to what we've covered, most likely that's not generally understood, and that you just need to clarify where you got it from and just stick to that, and you're going to be fine. And video notes, you guys are all doing great. The discussions, I think we're going to see more coming this week about how they look, but I feel like everything's going to go strong with that. So, okay, having said that, and moving forward, I did see that some of you mentioned that there was a problem opening up the link for chapter 11. Keep in mind, for some reason on these the links, sometimes when I put in a specific chapter link, it changes or it can go wrong. What I looked at this morning is that if you go to the syllabus and you see the Zen book, I have a link just for the entire book, and that was still working. So if you ever have a problem with a specific chapter link, try to go to the syllabus and see if you can just go open up the Zen book and then just find the chapter there, and that should do it. But hopefully we're not going to have too much more trouble with that. Sorry, I think I kind of threw out my top of my neck or back doing my other job. Your professor has a multifaceted life. I do a lot of different things that don't all relate to the same type of lifestyle. So yeah, I just moved a lot of furniture and a lot of rugs yesterday. Anyhow, okay, so all right. So what did we learn in summarizing? we had really talked about westward expansion of what made the United States that we live in now. That we're in the Central Valley, or even here where I'm at now in Oregon. This was all a part of that finale of this westward expansion, and I focused on the Modoc War because one, it's not learned about enough, but it also really kind of captures just the momentum, the finale that and the stakes in which the United States was willing to go um, to make this expansion happen. And remember, this was after the Civil War, and um, it it was pretty well. Anyways, I think you all, I saw in your readings, were kind of shocked by the violence and just the whole kind of context of it. Um, but again, I think you were able to kind of absorb this idea of the United States as a settler colonial project, and that there was indigenous people here that had to experience that, and that we're trying to fix that, figure that out, like put that into our mental structure here, our thoughts on how we get to where we're at. And we haven't even, later on, we even have the same thing happen with Hawaii, which we'll talk about later in this class. But okay, so having said that, we moved on then to industrialization, and we're coming up into exploring the issues of wealth disparity and class. And I have Helen Keller as an example to look at, because I've always thought she was such a dynamic character on so many levels, but often the way that she's always been portrayed in media since I was younger. And by the way, I don't know if you all are exposed to the history of Helen Keller in the same way that I was when I was younger, but there was always this big emphasis on the struggles she had as a blind and deaf person and how she overcame them and became this very important and internationally known woman. But she was a much more complex character than that, and it's typical that we see people like Martin Luther King Jr., people like Helen Keller, people like Cesar Chavez. They get kind of sanitized while they're put into, or their legacy is used to fit into a set of political objectives by the establishment, where they give us the safe version of these characters, and they don't like to talk about the aspects of those characters that the system was not happy about. So I posted an announcement, with Martin Luther King Jr.'s Beyond Vietnam speech, which we again will most likely cover that later in the semester as well. You weren't required to watch it, but that's definitely a speech that Martin Luther King Jr. gave that the establishment never wants to highlight because he's very critical of the U.S. government. And in the case of Helen Keller, she was very critical of the economic system that dominates the United States to this day, right? And so I thought you'd find those informative and helpful. By the way, I have a little dog in this in the house here, which you may be hearing as he crawls around and wants attention. But okay, so that's where we're going with all this, and hopefully this week you'll find engaging with the discussions exciting, and the material that we're covering. I do work again a lot, and so if you have some quick questions that you think I can answer you during the middle of a work day, you can text me, and just if it's something that I can like help address right off the bat. Otherwise, do what you're doing, write to me, and I'll always get back to you as soon as possible. And I hope everything that I just said in here is kind of helpful and reminds us of what we've covered so far. and we will be in touch. Have a great rest of your week.